Welcome everyone. Vaheguru Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ki Fateh. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever everyone is. On behalf of the American Sikh Council, my name is Kavneet Singh, and this is our 11th series, part of the conference which we are doing on the farm laws and its impacts. And we welcome High Court attorney, very well-known attorney, Sir Rajvinder Bains. And without much further ado, I'm going to just go over his bio. The speaker for the 11th event now in the series is, again, attorney Rajvinder Bains. He holds a bachelor's in engineering, electrical engineering from Punjab Engineering College, Chandigarh, and an LLB from Punjab University, Chandigarh. He has had a distinguished career as an officer in the Indian Navy from 1979 to 1982. He was a teaching assistant at Punjab Engineering College, Chandigarh from 1982 to 1985. He has been practicing law at the Punjab and Haryana High Court at Chandigarh since 1985. He has primarily practiced in the fields of service law, human rights law, and criminal law. He has been associated with Punjab human rights organizations known as PHRO since 1986 and did public interest litigation from torture in custody to AIDS testing kits, encroachment around the Bar Sahib in Amritsar, demolition of settlements, slums around the periphery of Chandigarh, discretionary allotments and admissions and benefits to big companies while allotting power plants on a first-come-served basis in Punjab, leaving the auction route, rights of contract workers, etc. He has co-authored The Joy of Mathematics in the Saturday Plus column of the Tribune newspaper. Some of his well-known cases that Sir Rajvinder Bains has litigated are as follows. The trial of 9 police officers from trial court till Supreme Court, which resulted in life imprisonment of 5 officers for abduction and murder of the famous human rights activist Sir Jaswant Singh Kalra, which led to the mass cremation case, which resulted in compensation to 1,500 families whose dear ones were cremated as unknown bodies in 3 cremation grounds of Amritsar, Punjab. He is still conducting the longest criminal trial of Punjab in Hoshiarpur district. It was started by the younger sister of Shaheed Bhagat Singh in 1989, in which the brother of her son-in-law was abducted and killed by police of Hoshiarpur district. Despite all threats and odds, the 3 police officers are facing trial for abduction with intent to murder. Sir Rajvinder Bains is also the son of the fearless living icon, namely Justice Ajit Singh Bains, who spent years fighting for Sikh human rights against major odds. Welcome, Sir Rajvinder Singh. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Kavneet. Since I am the 11th speaker, I presume the technical detail of the acts, the 2.5 acts or 3 acts, and ultimately the suggestions and all kind of things which undermine the farmers' autonomy, independence, perhaps is well known to the speakers now. And in fact, every child now in Punjab understands, and perhaps in India also a large part, that first time they have been able to convey that this is not their government. This is not our government. This is actually a government of the big business. In fact, the left participants in the protest, or I call it uprising, frankly admit that for 17 years we are trying to convince the people that it is the government is always of the big business, but only now this protest movement had understood and conveyed to the people across the country that the government is not of the people. They are not for your interest. They are not for your welfare. How has it happened? I would rather go on the big picture. How has it happened? Because it is not simply a protest. We were up against the nation's most authoritarian government in 2014. It came on the plank of ultra patriotism, ultra militarism, on majoritarian agenda. Hindu religious symbols were used and invoked, and 80% majority Hindu nation flocked it, and it targeted a very clear minority, Muslim as evil and we are the saviors, and ultimately invoked historical injustices of 800 years of rule of the Muslim emperors, and thereby actually collected the whole country behind them. And thereafter, they actually did some completely unpopular decision, but did not lose their popularity. Did not lose their popularity. They did the demonetization. They took away the special status of Jammu and Kashmir. They in fact made it a union territory. They violated the constitution. They invoked religious shamelessly. They made our Supreme Court lost its nerve and its spine. They made the election commissioner their lapdog. In fact, the last major act they did was the Citizen Amendment Act, where they blatantly and shamelessly targeted the minority and denied them, almost going to deny them the citizen right. And that gave to a nationwide protest movement that is now called a Shaheen Bagh movement. It started in December 2019, carried on till 24th of March, 101 days. Sit-in protest, 24 hours, 7 days a week. And it attracted nationwide attention with all the lawyers and the best poets and ultimately the students of Jawaharlal University and university participating in them. But it crushed it. It crushed it under the garb of Supreme Court orders. It crushed it under the garb of pandemic. It crushed it by military force. And nobody could have believed that after having crushed the greatest protest against the government in 6 years on 24th of March 2020, it will face any challenge at all for maybe next 10 years or 20 years. This was the feeling. And they did it by planning second Delhi riots. In February 2020, they actually organized the killing of Muslims, destruction of the property for 7 days under the police, exactly like 1984, exactly like 2002 in Gujarat. The same way they perfected this. And actually we were all numbed at the sheer enormity of crime and how, and thereafter the police started framing all the victims of violence as the accused. They made it as a big conspiracy that they wanted to embarrass the government and therefore killed Muslims and put property on fire and framed major students and all kind of best of men into that conspiracy angle. In that scenario and under the shock of pandemic, they brought this 3 farmers bill on 5th of June. And really, nobody had an idea, government has no idea that this will face anything. They always thought it's smooth sailing. And it was brought always as an ordinance. Parliament was on in session. Parliament ultimately came in session in September and made it a law on 29th of September after the president signed the bill. And the murmurs of protest started on 7th of September in Punjab. For 2 months, people didn't understand what has happened. But 7th of September, they gave a call for jail bharo, then the call for blocking the roads, then the blocking the railway, and then finally on the state lockdown band on 25th of September. And after 26th of September, they started standing protest at Shambhu border, the border between Haryana and Punjab on the national highway. And that went on for maybe 2 months. And then something happened on 25th of November 2020. And suddenly, why call it an uprising? That it was sudden, it was spontaneous. It was something which even the government and one of the strongest government that India has seen were completely outmaneuvered. And the thousands of people rushed towards Delhi. I call it a siege of Delhi. And since 26th of November, we have seen the visuals, we have seen the overwhelming enthusiasm, we've seen every possible thing. And the farm leaders themselves say we had no idea. They say we had no idea, we did not plan. We actually thought wherever the police will stop us, we'll start the sit-in protest there. What happened was beyond their comprehension and it submerged. And from 26th of November, you can see that national highway is seized, the Delhi is surrounded. At 4 places, the protest continues. And it is not a simple protest. It is actually like a liberated zone. It is 10 kilometers of self-governance model. And the extent, if you see, the kind of logistic they're able to survive for all these days, something like 278 days, how much they have survived is that, just have a comparison. In Darbar Sahib, every day 50,000 people, around 50,000 people, langar is served. And here, In this seas, something like that is happening since 26th of November. Even the police estimate in December was 30,000 at Singhu border, 20,000 at Tikri border, but thereafter 10 to 12,000 people every day visiting. And this kind of upsurge, and it is not only an upsurge, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., there's a continuous stage speeches. All kind of people have visited this protest site, all kind like a pilgrimage center, lawyers delegation, poets delegation, students leader, all over from Punjab, Haryana, from Tamil Nadu, has addressed the people. And thereafter they've educated that this is not a simple protest. And therefore, even while negotiating, all the symbols used, and the government, actually one of the most manipulative government, failed to actually win over a single leader, failed to threaten over the single leader. And the whole country ultimately, frankly, admittedly gave credit to the Punjab Kisan leadership. They call it Sanjukt Kisan Morcha. They say whatever they do will do. And finally, the country is behind them, because it was always the air. Suicides of farmers, exploitation of farmers, something like that. What has happened that finally, and it took 4 days for Haryana farmers to join. Suddenly, when they saw this inspiration, then they joined. Then the Rajasthan farmers joined. Then, of course, the UP farmers joined. And when you go there, and since then, 51 toll plazas across Punjab, Haryana are being seized by the farmers and not paying toll plaza, not paying toll plaza fee. It is almost like people are enjoying 500 crores money they have just enjoyed as free gift of the farmers. Everybody is enjoying the toll roads. And each time they bless the farmers. When even I pass the toll plaza and don't want to give 200 rupees, I feel happy. That kind of thing is happening. It is continuing. And the logistic is not planning by a single group. It has happened spontaneously. The kitchens are overwhelmingly by the babas, we call it, by the gurudwaras, by the villagers. Every kitchen, and it's not only the kitchen, it's the medicine, it's the tent city, it's the continuous education, it is the educating slum children around that area. Everything is simultaneously going on, apart from poetry, apart from political consciousness. And down the line, a message has gone. Down the line, continuous education, that this is not something we have to accept and go back. You ask a child, you ask an old man, everybody has only one answer. You take back the laws, otherwise my dead body will go. I am not going to go back. So this kind of commitment you see something like in last 10 situation. You don't see such kind of commitment. We have seen large number of vegetation. I have seen the siege of Chandigarh way back in 80s. Even in 1988, 8 lakh farmers, Mahinder Singh Dikath, has brought them to Delhi. Line was 3 kilometers of tractor trolleys. Here at Singhu border, when I once visited on 24th of December, the line was 6 kilometers. On 24th of January, when I visited the line of tractors, that 6-lane highway was about 8 kilometers. When I woke up on 25th of January, the line was 12 kilometers. By evening, it has spread further. And on the morning of 26th of January, it was almost 20 kilometers. Nobody could count actually the tractor trolleys and the cars and the trucks and the people. And in 80% of people actually couldn't move into the city of Delhi. They were just stranded there. There was no movement. There's simply too many people, too many vehicles. And therefore, even the 26th of January episode was exceptional, that nothing happened in Delhi. No violence, no shop was looted, no girl was molested, nothing of the kind. Everybody who's gone there has experienced a kind of the best of human nature, compassion, helping everybody. Nobody is angry. Everybody is getting food. It is almost like, what should I say? Khalsa Raj, Ram Raj in communist term, the complete self-governing societies, and no difference. Nobody asked, nobody caste. Caste has actually disappeared. Something which is so difficult in Indian society. And in that kind of scenario, the pricing is going on. Almost, it is like, at least I found it that just like in 1857 when the East India Company thought, because now also deep inside everybody has understood it is a major multinationals game. It is not even the game of Prime Minister of India. It is not even the game of Bharatiya Janata Party. It is not even the game of RSS or Rashtriya Swayam Sangh. They don't understand. It is actually the game of transnational corporations who are buying land left and right around the globe. And this is not easy to understand. It is not easy to comprehend. It is not easy to get this idea that you are lodging almost a last battle, almost a last stand, because if we are unable to defeat this government on these farmers' laws, we will unable to stem the tide. And it is easy to understand that India has second largest arable land after USA, 160 million hectares. USA has 174 million hectares. And that is the second largest. But India also has the largest gross irrigated land, that is 82 million. So it is not for nothing that the multinationals who are investing in food business are eyeing India. Their whole focus is on India. And the first thing is by changing the laws. You see, 160 hectares of land, and even 1 hectare, 20 canals gives livelihood to a small farmers in India. Actually, the need is for investing in education, for innovative farming, and not investment through companies. Because ultimately, the aim which we have seen from 2007 onwards, the largest companies started buying land. Once the people realize that countries who are food insecure, who have no food grown in their own countries, like Japan, like Korea, like China, like Saudi Arabia, like Middle East countries having a lot of petrol and money, they are buying land across Africa, Sudan, across Cambodia, Vietnam, and for a long time they are looking after this particular piece of huge arable land, and they got the chance. This government is conceived to be a right-wing government, propped up by manipulation of the electoral machinery, by invoking religion, and ultimately came to power on big business money. And that shameless agenda they are implementing, and that is something at least the Punjab has understood. And therefore the intensity, therefore the tenacity, and therefore the joy and the chardi kala. And certainly it is, you can see that first time the left and the right and everybody has one slogan, Bole so Nahar Sat Chire. There's no opposition at all, that even if there's a Sikh symbolism, but the rest of the country is ready to accept the leadership. And at least I have not witnessed a kind of unity of purpose and bringing out the best of human qualities together visibly and being enacted. It is actually on the stage. You can see the best part of human vision. Because whatever is doing, now the second vision which the government wants to implement is the corporate vision. Wherever large area of tracts of land, and they are not buying, the corporations are not buying small areas. They are buying areas like 1 million hectares. Punjab has 5 million hectares of agricultural land. That huge area is being purchased the rest of the places. And we in Punjab right now, or even in India, have large number of innovative farming techniques developed by local farmers. And in Punjab, at least, I visited large number of farms, even from 20 canals, 1 hectare, or which is 2.5 acres. People are living good life. They are able to, because ultimately the challenge for us all in Punjab and in Indian farmers is, what next? Even before these laws, we were in distress. Even before these laws, we were committing suicide. So even if the laws are taken back, what next? In fact, a group of such farmers actually met me, say, have you thought of after the agitation? They expect that we will be able to return, that these laws will certainly be ultimately repealed by the parliament, or struck down by the Supreme Court sooner or later. But what next? And the models, and thereafter, after seeing them, the models of agriculture is completely different from the multinational models of which the corporations are advocating. They are actually advocating age-old banana republic methods. You have a large plantation, you have a large machinery, you make everybody, small farmers are irrelevant. If you're small, get out, let them get big. And ultimately, what kind of crops are they going to grow? It is GMO, it is corn, it's biofuels, and the local population, whether in Latin America or in South America, it is a well-documented tragedy. You can see in Philippines, you can see in any other country who have given rise to lease of land to large corporations. India with 160 million hectare at least can support 160 families on agriculture. And 160 million family means 16 crores into 5 of a family, 80 crores people actually, almost 70 crore people are actually subsisting on this so-called marginal farming. But even this marginal farming with innovative education can actually give rise to a healthy, simple lifestyle. And the beauty is that at least in Punjab experimentation, in Punjab, farmers who have designed new method of agriculture where it is profitable, where it is not pesticide free, and they are inspired by the Gurban. They say when we called water as our father and earth as a mother and the air as a teacher, how can we prosper by poisoning them? So they have adopted 3 rules that we will not do anything which poisons the air, we will not do anything which poisons the land, we will not do anything which poisons our water. And if we see, even on the net FAPRO, Farmers Produce mission, they have actually made 300 farms whereby doing these principles inspired by Gurbani, they're actually having a person with 5 acres confess that I have earned 82 lakhs in 2 years. So therefore, the 2 model of agriculture, one is marginal small farmers, land farms model. The traditional model of land reforms, you see, we have been always talking about land reforms, which means land to the tiller. It has now gone out of fashion. It was never easily implemented. Whatever was implemented in Punjab during Banda Bahadur times, that is why small farms come to Punjab. Rest of the country still has big Jagirdar. Now instead of Jagirdar, you have even super corporate. So ultimately the solution, I'm more than the solution because I have no doubt that this uprising is going to succeed. Laws are going to be returned. Sooner or the government will be turned down. We have seen the result in West Bengal. We have seen the political result. This uprising has actually generated human potential and the best of human potential, which is actually influencing the rest of the country. And therefore, if we are able to have an agriculture model based on individual learning techniques, based on organic and natural method, our population, our families, either in Punjab, we can actually save the land. Otherwise, the next model is large plantation, GMO seed, intensive big machinery, and after 30 year, 50 year, land is barren and they're out. And you are in destitution because one is the model of profit-based, more profit, more power, more profit, more power. Other model is, of course, welfare for all, welfare for the people, people are central. These 2 visions are actually face to face at Singhu border. These 2 visions are actually facing each other at Tikri border, at Ghaziabad border, at Jaipur highway. And day in and day, this lesson is being put into the people. You see that the kind of enthusiasm on the Women's Day on 8th of March at Tikri border. 60,000 women in saffron dupatta collected together. And a reporter asked the speaker, how do you knew that such a large amount of women will come and then women will not understand what is Women's Day? How have they come from Punjab and Haryana? He says, we had trust that they will understand. And they had trust. And they are not a burden. Each one of them came with his own food, with his own water of bottle, and came all the way to make a stand. And that day, the stage was managed by only women. All speakers were only women. And they are also talking in terms of this kind of global exploitation and how we are the spearhead of the second vision. We call it a Gurbani vision, we call it a Punjab vision, we call it an organic vision, we call it a human-centered vision. But this vision actually is under test. And therefore, moral, legal, burden, duty for every one of us to support this uprising. Because such a enthusiasm, such an inspiration never comes, doesn't come easily. It comes maybe after decades, maybe after 50 years, maybe after 20 years. And at least personally, I find it extremely transforming. And every uprising will have its impact. It will have maybe have a long term, maybe short term, maybe it ends in tragedy, maybe it ends in, but ultimately, at least the Punjab and India will change for the better after these events are over. To that extent, I invite questions because I believe the rest of the technical details of that. One thing I just add. You see, India has, while the world, large corporations were buying plantations and large globe was being put into a big investment and big corporation, big machinery. In India, 2001 to 2013, there was a right to food campaign. With the help of the activists, lawyers, activations, and the grassroots workers, they filed petition after petition in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court passed lots of orders, and ultimately they created a National Food Security Act in 2013. Now, very little is talked about this act, but this is an act which actually is an answer. This act says, and it defines minimum support price. We need to actually operationalize this act. It defines minimum support price, it defines center pool, it obligates the central government that you have a duty to give a nutritious food to each citizen. And you have to make allocation for it. And the state government obligation, the local authority obligation, and it defines even food grains, the cereal, the rice, where you have to give a minimum support price. And if the state government is unable to discharge its obligation to provide food to everybody, the central government will fill the gap. Having this complete trend of food security in India from 2001 to 2013, culminating in the statute, it was a major reversal, the three farm laws of June 2020. It actually is clashing statutes. How will they operationalize it? They will actually make it redundant. They will ultimately, the Food Security Act will actually become redundant, and someday they will repeal it. But between the two acts, one vision is Food Security Act. Human is more important. Human potential is with food. Food is fundamental to life. Without food, there is no other right, no other way. And therefore, if we go the Food Security Act way, India will emerge as a strong, healthy, happy nation. If we go by the corporate way, the three black laws way, that vision we know already it's happening in Pakistan. The United Arab immigrants have purchased some huge land in Pakistan and Balochistan, and 25,000 villages are being destroyed and displaced, and all kind of unrest and civil war and civil strife happens in wherever country this large-scale plantation and modern agriculture techniques is being used, at least in Asian country where cooperation enters. So this is one vision. This is our Punjab vision, or the farmers' vision, or the present uprising vision. Thank you. I'll invite questions.
Thank you, Sir Rajvinder Singh Ji. That was very succinctly put together in such a short time. You elaborated quite a bit of what was partly missing in some of the other speakers previously. So thank you so much. I'd invite now folks from the audience, please raise your hand and unmute, and then you can ask questions. Please keep it very brief. Your personal comments should be brief. The question at hand, which our guests can answer, should be first and foremost. So with that, without much further ado, please, if anyone has questions, please raise your hand and you can unmute.
Hello, this is Dr. Das.
Give me 1 second, Dr. Das. Could you please? Okay, go ahead.
First of all, I really appreciate Rajvinder Singh Ji. He did such a beautiful job. Very nice, very informative, how the whole agitation started against these three farmer laws. from very beginning. It was very nice and very nicely done. My question is, everybody knows these three farmer laws, black laws, which we call them, they are illegal because the central government has put these laws into effect. My problem is, if everybody knows that in all over the states in India, how come the governors or the chief ministers of different states, they don't send a letter of protest to the central government that we don't want to accept these laws because these are illegal laws. We have our own laws. The states has the power to put the laws. We will do the laws, and they reject these laws. Ultimately, then I don't know what central government can do. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that one?
The Punjab legislature has passed a very strong resolution and in a way amendment of this act, and the object says clearly what I have said: the corporate interest versus the farmer's interest. And 4 other states have also protested and passed a resolution. But since the parliament, this party has almost 2/3 majority, and they can mutilate the constitution. And since the farmers and the citizens don't have much hope from the Supreme Court, and therefore people are not pursuing the constitutional remedy. But even the constitutional remedies are effective only when it's backed by people's power. Now, if you see between 6 months from November to today, now you could see the courts using strength. The Supreme Court looking after a little bit, passing better orders. The high courts are intervening. This courage, in fact, this agitation, this uprising actually empowered the Supreme Court, empowered the High Court, empowered the opposition also. So therefore, the courts and the state governments take strength only from this kind of popular protest. And we could see the difference. The government's moral legitimacy, the government confidence, the government's the atrocities, and the minority narrative and the majority narrative has actually first time gone out of the social media. Otherwise, this government for 6 years was actually propagating communal agenda shamelessly. First time this agitation has come back to the long-lasting, living happily together, the secular agenda of the country. You see, Indian subcontinent had been making progress only when there is a affinity between, amity between, love between these major 2 communities, the Hindus and the Muslims. Sikhs are of course in between somewhere, but ultimately, whether at the time of against the British Empire, whether at the time of Akbar or Ashoka, basically unless you follow respect for all the basic rule of law and no discrimination against anybody, this country has never been united, could never actually progress, could never present yourself as one nation, and could protect itself. Therefore, this farmers' agitation after 6 or 7 or 10 years has brought back, it has actually nullified the majoritarian agenda. It is so difficult. India is one of the only Hindu nation in the world. 80% population Hindu, the next is Nepal with 82%. And with this kind of party, and nobody is actually stopping it. The Election Commission could stop it, the Supreme Court could stop it. Our constitution says you can't ask vote for a religion. Here, day in and day out, the Prime Minister also asks vote for the temple. So therefore, with this kind of virulent communal propaganda by the mainstream and by the government, it is almost a miracle that this protest and uprising has changed the narrative of India. It has brought back to the fundamentals that let us be together. Let us not indulge in hatred. Let us together walk toward prosperity and respect of individual rights. So therefore, even though the state governments, the regional state governments are, but they're all politics. They're all politicians. Ultimately, they're influenced by the same corporation and big money and the businessmen as is the central government. And therefore, the moment they sense the mood of the people that it is this fire is spreading, they will also change. The opposition will come, and now perhaps the court will also listen. Now perhaps I'm sure the Supreme Court will strike it down if it comes to that, or the government itself might take it back. But this would not have been possible. This would not have been possible without this uprising, without this extraordinary resilience and resistance, and this kind of attitude that our dead bodies go back, this kind of last stand kind of mentality. This would otherwise the nation would not have, the institutions would not have been empowered. It had happened way back in 75. The Supreme Court actually, whenever there was needed, the Supreme Court sits down. Ultimately, the people voted Mrs. Gandhi out, and then suddenly Supreme Court is also active, the High Court is also active, the Election Commission is also active. So this kind of thing is happening today, that these farmers of Punjab, and particularly Haryana and Punjab, has actually saved this country from authoritarianism, from dictatorship, from actual civil war, and a major targeting of the minority Muslim community as they were planning. They were actually planning to disenfranchise them. They were virtually on that agenda, and they were so hopeful, they were so clear that now the aim of Hindu Rashtra, the vision of RSS, is within our grasp. And it is such a setback to that grand Hindu vision of one nation and grand nation and powerful nation and world power, typically that Kaiser, First World War vision or Hitler's vision, any fascist vision. So that vision is such a major setback that you find these people completely out of confidence, completely out of fear. And therefore, though the government, the courts will do their rule, but I'm sure the primary rule of radicalize the population, spreading like wildfire, the time has come for more power to the state, for more independence to states. This agenda will also take steam from this protest only.
Thank you, Sir Rajvinder Singh ji. The next question is from Panji. We've got Sir Baljinder Singh before you. Okay. If you may ask a question first, please, and then I'll come to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rajvinder Singh ji, we really want to thank you for such a clear understanding you have given to us about the whole situation. So I'm very delighted to hear you, because we had previous speakers who blaming the farmers or blaming some little things. Punjab didn't do this and that. But the perspective you have presented, it is so pleasing. I'm delighted that this is where you clearly set up things straight, because this is the movement which is, people don't see it. It is the movement which is going to change the rest of the times which are coming. And we want to thank you for taking this time and joining us this morning. Thank you again.
Thank you, Sir Baljinder Singh ji. I'm going to go to Siddharni Jaspir Kaur. If you just bear with me. Go ahead, Panji. You ask a question.
Ji, Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. It was really a pleasure to listen to Sardar Bains, and for giving us such a चढ़दी कला वाला. मैं ना थोड़ी पंजाबी बोलनी है क्योंकि ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਬੋਲੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ हैं. मैं लगदा चंडीगढ़ मेरा शहर है ਤੇ ਭਾਜੀ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਐਡੀ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਐਡੀ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਸਮਝਾਇਆ ਤੇ ਐਡਾ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਵਾਲਾ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਦਿੱਤਾ. ਅਸੀਂ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਪਰੇਸ਼ਾਨ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਆ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਪਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀ ਸੇਮ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਾਲੀ ਵਿਜ਼ਨ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਖੂਨ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੇ ਖੂਨ ਨੇ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਨਵੀਂ ਦਿਸ਼ਾ ਦੇਣੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਚਾਉਣਾ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਧਰਮ ਫਰਜ਼ ਹੈ. ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਸੁਣ ਕੇ, ਬੜਾ ਹੀ ਸਕੂਨ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਹੈ ਰੂਹ ਨੂੰ. ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਰਗੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸੁਲਝੇ ਸਿਆਣੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਸਾਡੇ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਦੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਸਾਡੇ ਕਿਸਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗਾਈਡ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਾਹ ਫੜਨ ਵਾਲੇ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਹਾਰ ਹੋਏਗੀ. ਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਮੇਰਾ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਵਰਤ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈ ਥੋੜੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਇੱਧਰ ਉੱਧਰ ਚਲੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਨਾਲ ਤੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਤੁਰਨ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਾਹ ਫੜਨ, ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ ਤੇ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਕਿਸਾਨ ਵੀਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਖਿੱਤੇ 'ਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਭਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿੱਤ ਹੋਵੇ. ਆਪਾਂ ਵੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਪਿੱਛੋਂ ਆਏ ਆ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਦੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਮਾਂ ਕਹਿਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਮਾਂ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹਮਲਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੋਣ, ਬਸ ਇਹ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਐਕਸਪਲੇਨ ਕਰੋ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਅੱਗੇ ਇਹੋ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਦਈਏ. ਜੀ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ।
शुक्रिया जी। पंजाबी च बोलना कि अंग्रेजी च बोलना?
जिस तरह मर्जी।
क्योंकि ये ठीक है कि अपराइजिंग करना आसान है, इनू इकट्ठा रखना औखा होंदा है। कोई भी मूवमेंट नू शुरुआत आसान होती है, इकट्ठा करना काफी मुश्किल होता है. So keep the movement going coherently in a good direction is a great challenge. And to that extent, the leadership has passed this test. Even nobody could imagine this could go on for so long. It would able to withstand all the machination of a very McLevin government. You see, this is a government which is dedicated to power and manipulation and crime. I mean, if you see the mindset of the government, it thinks like criminal. It resolves all problem by either threatening or purchasing or buying or setting up a kind of criminal allegations and giving them a bad name. And then finally, we were preparing that finally they might even do the major firing like Jallianwala Bagh. Because when I see it, this movement till 18th of March, 300 people have died. Jallianwala Bagh, 379 had died. So we are actually fast approaching. In Jallianwala Bagh may be sacrifice of one day. This is a daily sacrifice of 2 farmers, and it's carrying on. And therefore, as on today, the leadership, the youngster, and you cannot imagine the ability of the government to sow the suspicion, the ability of a central government with one of the largest armed forces and intelligence cadre in its command, ability to buy people, to threaten people, to influence, to dig out things, the way they have dealt with Punjab since 1947. I mean, they don't allow anybody to be politically active in this part of unless they have the approval of it or it comes to some compromise. The inside story is that they will not let any youngster or anybody who has tried to enter politics completely free, either he has been killed or cases planted against him, and ultimately he had to retire. I know so many good leaders at the grassroots levels who had aspirations, who were clean, who could have made a change if actually participated in the political process. But the moment you step out, the moment you give your intention, immediately cases are planted against him, and they are remain in jail for 2 years, 3 years, and lost in the legal battle. So that is the scenario. In that scenario, when they focus Punjab as a problem state, they focus Punjab as a border state, they focus Punjab as some kind of aligned with Pakistan and all kind of things, you can imagine the resources they put. Just like in Kashmir, they put enormous resources to keep people subdued and divided and fighting. Similarly, Punjab is the focus of such kind of power game. And in that power game, this kind of emergence itself is a miraculous thing. So therefore, as on today, everybody is trying its best. Everybody is actually understanding the gravity and the grandeur of this movement. And they also understand that it is not easy. It cannot be repeated. It happened with the blessings of the Lord. It happened. Therefore, now it is on our shoulders to make it to a successful conclusion. So all of us are trying as hard as can. And ultimately advises the youngster has to listen to the elders. The elders have more experience, and yet the elders have to love the youngsters and not to blame each other. So this kind of typical in our culture, that youngsters may speak out, but ultimately must obey the seniors. The seniors must never reprimand them in public. They might give advice in private. So that kind of things, advice is being percolated, being given to each individual leader. Each person is trying its own way to show that this is too great a battle for any individual aspiration or any individual ambition. This is actually too big a game. It is too big a thing. So don't let it go and then repent for at least 50 years.
Wise words, Sergeant Rajvinder Singh ji. That's very well put. The next, and thank you, Panji. The next.
बहुत शुक्रिया जी, वीर जी दा भी ते तुहाडा भी ते बहुत खुशी हुई उन्हां दियां सारियां गल्लां सुन के, and it was just inspiring. जिद्दां उन्हां ने अपराइजिंग किया, ये बहुत inspiring इन्हां दी वॉइस हैगी है, मैसेज भी बड़ा inspiring है और बड़ा thoughtful ते सियाणा ते आपां we are very thankful to Veer ji and to you too. Thank you.
The next question is from another individual who comes regularly to our program, Mohan Vairakannu. Please unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Governor Singh, for inviting me, and very inspiring speech by Rajvinder Singh. Bains. A lot of information, he said it is true. And first, I want to thank Punjab and Haryana brothers and sisters, and father and mother, everybody, how they fight this, leading this farmers' law for the whole country, right? The problem is for the whole country, but the whole country not able to understand, not able to listen. But everywhere in Tamil Nadu, there are protests in different cities, but not in the mass protest what Punjab is doing at Delhi borders. First, I want to thank again, very perseverance, so many months and still continuing, and the government is I think speaker said that it will be the Supreme Court is now changing. Yeah, I say that recently a lot of changes, but I don't know whether once the COVID-19 situation become normal, I don't know whether they will change. I don't know whether they'll continue the same way. Because the election commission and everywhere they have a RSS team working, right? I don't think the RSS team is going to change their mind. Ever since they came to power, if you look at all the laws, everything is against people. Nothing is for the people. There was no one law to uplift the people of India. No, right? CAA, a new education policy, the farmers' law, the environmental impact, you name it, right? Everything is like that. Is there a possible that I think now the West Bengal, Kerala, Tamil Nadu gave an answer. Of course, some need some education there, maybe. And I hope on the next election is Punjab is coming. Hopefully that they'll teach also to the government. Is there a possibility to undo everything what these religious I don't say that they're not for the Hindu people. They are not for the Hindu people. They're 80% of the people suffering. Maybe the 5% is benefiting. Everything is for the 5% of the so-called, they call it Hindu, but not for Hindu. They're not for Hindu people. You can say that they may be for the laws for Banyas, Patels, and Brahmins. That's all. It's nothing. I don't think they call it a Hindu. But anyway, but the question is, sir, can everything, all the laws can be, undo with the new government? When this is going to happen, I don't know. But thank you very much for the opportunity. And I want to thank all the Punjab brothers and sisters again. Thank you. Thank you.
You see, the narrative which the government has built that we never take things back. So this is the kind of thing they're hammering, that we will not return, we will not take back the laws, we will only allow amendment. But many people have forgotten that one of the first amendment to the Land Acquisition Act was made by government in December 2014 by an audience route, where they gave a large concession to big business to have economic exclusive zones and take over and purchase land in India. And that met with an early resistance, and they did not make it into law. So the first initiative was actually defeated by a very little protest. They were not so secure then. So it is not that this government is not going to take back. This government will take, they have to have a political cost to it. They're already at the wit's end. They're already at the wit's end. They know that so much is lost. Once they're there, they will not be able to have these kind of laws for another 20, 30 years. That's what the Niti Yog said. If we take it back, we cannot brought it back for another 20 years. And that is true. With the kind of resistance I've seen, no government will take the risk. So long it is not a completely electoral voting machine government. So therefore, I'm very happy to hear that a Hindu is saying it's not a Hindu government, that it is not a Hindu favoring government, that it is doing no end to Hindus. It is so important because ultimately the communalism can only be defeated from within. So long the Hindu doesn't oppose this kind of blatant discrimination, this will not, the message never goes home. Ultimately, your own community has to say, this is not true Hinduism, this is not true religion, this is not what is compassion and what we have been teaching since the age of Vedas. This is not Nothing to do with religion. It is pure and pure power game, megalomania. Actually, prophet and a sold out, sorry figure for a prime minister who has completely bereft of any human emotions. You see, when the lockdown happened last year, thousands workers walked home and cycled for thousands of kilometers. Here is this prime minister who will not lend a train, who will not allow a bus to go, who will not allow anything to give. Any man, any compassionate man would have said, at least release the buses, allow the buses to run. This man, they are really actually psychopaths. They really have they can't understand man with compassion. Therefore, they are unable to understand Punjab. They are unable to understand this vision, everybody's welfare. They just don't have that kind of human heart and the vision which looks after everybody. Nobody should go hungry. That's the Punjab vision. And cooperation, no differences.
Beautifully put, Rajvinder Singh ji, and thank you, Mohan, for the question. Next is our Narinder Pal Singh. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the decent presentation. Enjoyed it. I have a couple of questions, maybe not directly related to the farmers, or maybe related. Lately, the Tribune reported that young farmers, there is disrupted the bank blood drive organized by BJP, RSS, the Aurangzeb Modi's government people. Is it true, or I don't believe that is the principle of farmers? They're saying it, we will not disrupt any activities.
No, once see, in Haryana and Punjab, the people have almost declared it very clear that you are not welcome in our villages. So whenever any BJP leader or minister tries to enter a village, he does faces some kind of protest. So even now, just like last few days back, the chief minister under the pretext of inaugurating a COVID center entered a village, how much resistance he faced. So similarly, I'm sure even if the BJP under some pretext, now they want to go back to the villages. They know how important it is to go to the villages, go to the people. And they are not welcome in any village. Even in that area where they have so long lived, even those village panchayats are passing resolution against them. So maybe they have made some kind of blood donation camp and somebody may have disturbed them. That's possible. That's possible because the running sentiment is that the moment you see a BJP function, the local people collect together and it doesn't require much organization. They just have to send a message and immediately people respond, so long as they're responding. And that's actually the message going home. That's why it is reaching the top. So I have no specific information about this particular incident, but it is possible. It's probable that even if the BJP say want to have a blood bank, the local people, the local boys may have opposed it. They're doing it at the grassroots level. Sometimes you don't distinction between very fine, noble activity and the political activity of Bharatiya Janata Party.
Next question is some international reporters coming on CNN in the local American channel. They are stating that one of them has been kicked out of India because she was reporting on Farmers Act and simultaneously reporting on COVID, and they do not like that. Is this a censorship in the media in India by the Aurangzeb Modi government? Please forgive me, I always call him Aurangzeb.
It is appropriate. You see, it is not a censorship by law. It's a censorship by greed. They have actually purchased. Before the Modi government came, the Ambani, Adani groups actually invested heavily in mass media. And therefore, they are controlled 20 channels directly. And one of the great success of this movement has been that first time the famed IT cell of Bharatiya Janata Party, the famed mass media, dare not enter this liberated zone. They call it the Mogodi media, and the reporters fail and not only face abuse, They sometimes face physical violence. The speakers are taken away, and they're actually they're covering this agitation or this protest or this movement and this uprising from a distance within in the company of the policeman at the border of the protest. And this has been such a grand success, and at large extent the participation of our out of the country's countrymen, the Punjabis across the world, have played such an important role in creative SMS messages, creating SMS videos and WhatsApp videos and beautiful small that they have actually whenever so first time you find that the IT cells actually is deluged by the positive pro-peasant message. So therefore, the censorship is there, no doubt, but this is no longer possible. No longer it's being able. They did try to shut down the internet for 7 or 8 days, but now they found that when they shut down the internet, even their operations gets closed down. So how long they will be able to do? They tried the way they did in Jammu and Kashmir, but here it's their own people, it's their own administration, it's their own government, it's across Delhi. So they tried even the internet shutdown. They're so much afraid of the message. And they're afraid of the message of love. They're afraid of the message of community living together. They are actually afraid of the message that we are humans. I mean, they're really afraid of humanity.
Kavneet, I have a very small, one more question. Probably everybody will appreciate that. Lately, there was an article in Washington Post that there are a lot of charitable organizations in the United States. They wanted to send funds to India, but the only question was that they should send it through the Prime Minister Fund. And many organizations are concerned when it goes to Aurangzeb Modi's government, then who knows where the funds will go, what the corruption will be, and which organization will get it. As we know, a lot of organizations, they are banned to send funds to India because they are not Hindu organizations. So what is the remedy for people to send funds when the situation in India is so bad as COVID, and people need help? And people who are doing some volunteer work in Delhi, they are being arrested because they are helping people. Thank you.
Transfer of funds have been the most difficult part legally to any charitable organization in Punjab. Because if you want to receive, you have to get a permission of the central government, and it never grants to most of the minority organizations or regional organizations or anything of that kind. And most of the boys are actually in jail, especially in that referendum campaign. They have received 12,000, 12,000, 20,000 rupees for putting a poster, and they have been implicated under Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, which is a very stringent act enacted for very dangerous terrorists. And at least 50 boys are inside Punjab jail only for exchanging WhatsApp messages of referendum 2020 and some poster they put up, or they've got printed some books for such meager amount. So therefore, to get a legal transfer of funds, even Sikh relief from UK, they used to give it only for medical help, etc., and for legal help. Even their account was, they interfered, and the boys here had to face a lot of harassment. And in fact, major, if I see the last 20-year cases, the moment you accept, like I personally said, once I did 3 bail applications for Daljit Singh Bittu. The Sikhs relief sent me 100,000 rupees, 33,000 for each case. And even for that meager amount, the NIA visited my office. Ultimately, since this was something legal fee, they couldn't do much. But this is the kind of monitoring they do. Even 100,000 rupees to a lawyer for a legitimate legal fee is under the spanner and under the scanner. And they actually pay a visit. So the kind of financial monitoring with the proper technology they're doing is amazing. And therefore, we keep telling boys, please don't have remuneration. But India has so many, Punjab has so many NRIs and so many people. And ultimately, it has to be individual to your family. And they only contribute to the moment people, money is anyway coming. It is bypassing the official channels, but it's extremely dangerous to send it overtly open channels.
Thank you for your response. I think that was well put. I've got next is our Kirpal Singh ji, who wants to ask a question.
Rajvinder ji, it is a beautiful presentation. I'm just, my question is very simple. I know that you do come in contact with the BJP intelligentsia also, you know, in your off hours. So my question is that, do you see any change in their paid mentality of the kind of directions they are getting from the center? Is there any change you see in their mood or thinking, which could, you know, make them envision, you know, the kind of future the farmers are looking for? So please explain.
Thank you.
Actually, Bharatiya Janata Party I always call it a criminal caste party. I don't ever call it high caste, because when you commit atrocities on other people, you can't be high caste or you can't be golden caste the way they would like to tell or portray themselves. So the criminal caste are actually minority. How have they incorporated the Dalits and the other backward caste into their fold by invoking a larger Hindu objective and symbolism? It is now ripping apart, it's falling apart. And now they understand that they have done nobody any good. So the kind of things which was promised to them, to all our poor Indians, poor Hindus, poor things, it is actually coming, but the hardcore or the criminal caste cadre of the Bharatiya Janata Party is intact. They don't debate at all. I mean, they don't display much of intelligence. They're actually quite a closed mind. And therefore, even on WhatsApp, they start fighting. But they have been subdued. They have been deluged by the contrary message. Earlier, they used to subdue us. We send one message, the 10 messages will come. Now, if they give one message, 10 will come counter to them. To that extent, they are facing the opposition. And now they're a little bit nervous and a little bit now restrained. They have been restrained in India for the last 70 years till they actually got the power. But their way, their vision, their ideology of segregated caste and the feeling that they are the superior and others are the inferior, and the society can't be equal, it will fall apart. That ideology has not been dented. That is continuing. That has to be dislodged either by electoral process or by force. There's no other way.
Thank you, Sir Rajvinder Singh ji. Are there any other questions or comments anyone else has? Please raise your hand, or send me the question and I can ask the guest. Looks like you seem to have answered all the questions. So it looks like all our problems are solved.
Sukhinder.
Go ahead, Sir Rajvinder Singh ji.
Rajvinder, thanks again as usual for all the good work you're doing. The question I have, which I asked one of the previous presenters also several weeks ago, assuming that the agitation is successful and the laws are withdrawn, shouldn't there be some entities at the lower level, state level, maybe district level or whatever, amongst the intelligentsia, which really have to look forward to how to really protect farmers going forward? So the problem I see is that with every generation, the farm holdings are shrinking. And at some point, they become virtually difficult to sustain. So, I heard you say something about innovative farming, which I think is sort of more of the agricultural science kind of things that can be used to continue to make the smaller farms sustainable. But they should be even thinking along organizational things where small farms can combine into cooperatives or something. I mean, I'm not very familiar with the sort of farming and agricultural sort of paradigms, but shouldn't at least Punjab and Haryana government be really have putting together a set of intelligent people to think forward? I think that's one of the things we really need to do, is to think what's going to happen in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. to the farmers that have really shrinking holdings. Any sort of comments or ideas or any activity in that field?
In fact, exactly with this question, the mission FAPRO people, FAPRO means farmers produce. They call it a mission. They actually came to me and they said, please tell your leaders, tell all the farmers leaders, after this agitation, what? Suppose the laws are repealed right now. What are going to do? Is it going to resolve farmers' problem? And certainly the major issue is, how do you make a livelihood out of small land? But fortunately, there's sufficient. Therefore, I said the university right now, we ultimately learned to do mechanized farming when the Green Revolution in the 60s and the 70s. We left the traditional farming, we went into new technology and tractors and pesticide, and finally we actually degraded our land. Now the alternative technologies are also existing. Alternative simple technology don't have major investment. What you need is major education in this innovative these technologies, and that is actually making a small farms viable also, livable also. In fact, the slogan is Sampuran Kheti and Puran employment, complete employment and complete natural agriculture without poisoning the air, the water, the earth. So the whole issue now is how do you take this technology, because right now the universities and the governments and the Department of Agriculture actually is locked down to the old method of cultivating things, old method of saving agriculture, and they have been actually given they are not really encouraged, and rather they are in opposition to the innovative technologies or innovative methods. Like these people, they found a very, very easy method of cultivating rice, which 90% requirement of water is decreased, and they demonstrated it. But they in fact called the Chief Minister, Mr. Prakash Singh Badal, to the farm, he made all the right noises, and thereafter forgot about it. So immediately, and this is his talent also. I mean, once you visit them, you know that it is not a difficult task. To make 2 acres farm productive is not a difficult task. And it actually gives complete employment to the family if we are willing to do that. Right now, the way we are doing farming, it is actually uneconomic. And it is everybody wants it to be uneconomic, so the farmers get out, the big persons comes in. Therefore, the traditional method, let's first get to the land reforms. You got to give a land to the tiller. The way he loves the land, the way he tills the land, the way he can make it productive, nobody else can. So the land farm movement actually in rest of India and Punjab actually stalled. Punjab is also have large proxy, big farmers doing the cultivation of land, and the actual tiller still doesn't get much. The moment you get an actual tiller to the land and make land sealing even more strict, and thereafter intensive education. Earlier also we had intensive, this agriculture university was supposed to teach farmers that only. Now they are not revising the syllabus. They are not revising that how do you make land alive? How the traditional method are much better. And they have shown even the productivity has not suffered. You see nowhere this information by the big pharma or the big business and the big agriculture farms that the GMO seeds can remove world hunger is actually proved to be wrong. It is that food production has risen by traditional method most of the places. Otherwise, the land actually becomes barren, and that is what the whole idea is. It's like mining. You take away whatever is valuable for 20 years, 30 years, and then you leave the area. So the traditional long-held productive land, and Punjab is a very productive land, and that is why the eyes on it, and therefore the typical situation where you want to grab it. It's called a land grab movement, very well documented around the world, and therefore I am very positive of visiting a few farms and actually interacting with those people that it is possible to teach. It is very easy. It requires no pesticide. It requires very little water, and it requires less labor also. What is this? They use the concept of forest. Just like let's learn from the forest. Let's learn from our Gulbani and implement those practices. Nowhere in the forest there's single crop. Nowhere in the land is flat. They actually, such a small thing, they learned that forest is always uneven and forest is never single crop. And therefore they applied these two principles and made their crop able to have a productive farming with multiple 5 simultaneously crop growing together, and thereafter without pesticide, without any other equipment, they're able to do that. And the water requirement actually comes down to when they divide the land into not flat, but in terms of waves, they find that the waves of 1.5 feet high, the water requirement of the field decreases 90%, and the plant which is the farther away from the moisture actually gets the bigger. The plants really don't require as much water as we thought they require. And because in jungle also you don't get much water. And therefore it is only requires a complete re-education into the methods which are learned by so many people, which is possible, which is being practiced. The forms are there, the examples are there, people are learning on their own. But the moment it gets state patronage, we want to get a government of the kind which understands this thing, it will be a problem very easy to solve. And the moment we are able to employ, you see, all the family in that small, simple process industries, ultimately, can you imagine, even this year, the quinoa was sold at 10 paisa a kg. In Chandigarh, at nowhere it came less than 25 rupees a kg. 10 paisa a kg, it was taken from the farm, 250 times enhancement in value by plucking the flower and bringing to Chandigarh. Look at the amount of profit involved in just simple trading. So now we have software platform. You can actually tell immediately the buyers, I have this thing. People will actually come and purchase from there. So this is possible, and so many people are actually doing it across Punjab and even Haryana also. That with the software, with the communication, and with this kind of natural method, or what to say, innovative method, the farm actually becomes productive with the honeybee and small and you don't need high technology. Very, very small oil industry, process industry, honey industry, and with the little bit of poultry, it becomes reasonably happy living of it, rather than seeking a 10,000 job in the city, living in slum.
Thank you, Sir Rajvinder Singh ji. That is, we've got maybe 1 or 2 questions if somebody else has before we wind up. So if there's anybody else who has a question, please kindly either send me a question in the chat or raise your hand and I can unmute you. I don't see anyone else. Okay, so looks like all the questions have been answered. Sir Rajvinder Singh ji, you solved all the problems. No, but personally, I just want to share, I think the way you put it across, having a very good grasp of the ground reality and to be practical, I think that a combination is very critical. And I just wish and hope there are other folks who either listen to you or more join in that, at that plane, at the same level. And hopefully there should be some change, because this is a very complex problem and it's not, we're all very emotionally charged. That's why we've got folks doing multiple Zooms, including us, trying to figure out this issue. But I think one of the comments made earlier, as Sir Sukhchinder Singh ji mentioned, that how do we resolve this in parallel while this uprising is going on? I think you and me had a separate discussion on that, so I think we'll talk offline. But I think that is critical, how to proceed. But nevertheless, all the things you've brought up have been just exceptional. So thank you on behalf of our audience, on behalf of the American Sikh Council. I want to thank the audience for participating, and thank you, Sir Rajvinder Singh, for your time. And with that, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you.